Hi there, this video is actually one of the projects from my online membership group, which I thought I'd put up here in case you're interested in finding out the kind of things that go on the group. If you enjoy it and want to find out more about it, then please do check out the link that's here in the description. It's completely free for the first month, so you can try it out and I don't lock you in. Okay, I hope you enjoy the video and I'll see you soon. Hi there, so for this month's project I thought it'd be a really good idea to continue doing the kind of working indoors because the weather's not great still. We don't really want to be going outside. I'm really looking forward to the spring when we can get out, do some work outside, just kind of get a bit of fresh air. I'm doing that at the moment anyway, getting out, getting a bit of a walk in. It's really good fun to do that, but I think still sitting outside in January, February, it's not a huge amount of fun, is it? So let's carry on with working in the studio and really seeing what we can do creatively to really push the work forward, but just by staying in the studio. So speaking of the weather, for this month's project, what I'd really like to do is a weather diary. And I think it's a really great idea to have a theme that you can stick to. It doesn't have to be really specific, it can be very loose, but the idea of a weather diary I think is quite a good one because this time of year it's very changeable. So every time you look out the window you're going to see something different, but I want to do slightly more than that as well. So what I'm going to do here now and show you is think about the idea of a weather diary. Every day you can just get going by thinking, okay, what's happening outside? What can I do with the weather, that really nice loose theme of the weather and what's happening outside to just start working, start thinking about working and get your kind of creative juices going. So what I'm going to do is just do some work in this little sketchbook that I've got in front of me. But rather than just thinking about this idea of documenting daily what's happening with the weather, what I want to do is use that loose theme to explore different ways of working. So one day you approach your weather diary with one type of media, say just in black and white. The next day you could do it with paint. The next day you could do it with collage. The next day you could do it with found materials. The next day you could do it photographically. The day after that you could maybe do something a little bit more 3D. So you can treat each day not just as looking at the weather and what's happening, so that gives you that little idea about what the subject is of the work you're going to be doing. It isn't very specific, it's nice and loose, so you can keep it really loose and creative. But each time you come to one of your drawings, think, right, what can I do? What can I do in this sketchbook that's a little bit different to what I did yesterday? Like I said, it can be paint, maybe a single color, maybe this one's all about texture today. So I want you to try and approach each day as a little challenge to think, what can I do in this sketchbook today with this very loose subject of what's happening outside with the weather, and just see where it takes you. And just do, even if it's just one piece of work, one small piece of work every day, just gets you going, gets your creative juices flowing, and hopefully it'll really help you going on. Because when you think about your work in general, you think, well, I can look back at my weather diary that I did in February 2023, had all those different ideas going, all those different things that I was doing there. Maybe I could bring some of that into the paintings that I'm doing now. Okay, so let's see. Let's have a go. Okay, so kind of strangely, it was actually quite a nice day outside my studio. It's a bit chilly here, but it's quite bright and sunny. So I just want to get something going. So I'm just going to start off. Just want to give you, an idea about the sorts of things that you could do very quickly. So I've just got this little sketchbook. So if you had something like this that you could use, so each day you're kind of working through it. You don't just have to do one piece of work. It could be, you could do a whole little series, couldn't you? Each day you could do a little series. So let's grab a bit of charcoal. There's a bit. So on the first attempt at something, I just get a little bit of water and just make some marks on my. And just make some marks and just look at the shapes. I just want to look at the shapes and actually just bring in maybe some of my window that's here as well, just for a bit of structure. But I quite like those dark bit of dark cloud that's going on there. I'm just going to work with that and just make some marks on my paper. Like I say, just focusing on trying to get some of that sense of movement with the clouds, the way the clouds are moving there. And what I thought was quite nice actually was this, someone's got a support for Ukraine flag in the yard outside my studio, but I quite like the idea of being able to, the way that shows the wind. I'm trying to make some marks about that movement, that kind of flappy movement. Let's get a bit of the flagpole in there as well. So that was more of a sense of looking for things. If you can look for things that are being caused to move by the weather. So I thought that was quite nice, that kind of. In fact, I quite like the idea of that actually. Now I've got that going, let's give some more of these kind of cloudy shapes going on as well. Well, now I've got that going. Immediately you start seeing things, you start working with things, and you find ideas, don't you? Things start to generate ideas straight away. So, I was seeing that flag flapping, and I thought it'd be quite nice to maybe get, just run with that idea of the way the wind was moving that flag. And it kind of just shows you the weather, doesn't it? It just shows you the movement of the air. I quite like the light and dark, so I might just going to make this single page just about that flapping flag. I'm trying to get some of that energy. It's kind of two-tone, isn't it? So, but I'm not going to go too far with that, I don't think. Okay, so what should we do next? I think, so you could do a whole series of those really quick, nice black and white ones, or maybe you could alternate it throughout the same day. You could say, you could start off with a little bit of black and white, which is always a good thing to do. It's something that I do quite often. So let's have a go at bringing a bit of colour into this. Now, I was quite lucky, like I said today. I'm just going to use a bit of this soft pastel. I was quite lucky today that it was actually quite nice out. So you can see actually just looking out my studio window. It's quite nice blue. Bit of blue sky. So I just want to do something really direct. Get some of that blue in there. It's rucking up the paper, which is okay. I don't mind too much. Let's get some of that in. So I'm kind of making a similar idea, but just throwing a bit of colour in as well. I get some pencil in here as well, which is quite nice. Well, sometimes it's quite good fun to I think it can be quite good fun sometimes just to focus on a single colour. So I'm looking out here, and the thing that's striking me is this blue. And there's something I've done in the past with these soft pastels, which can be really good if you really attack them. I'm thinking about the strength of that colour at this point. What I really want to do is make it all about that, make this all about that, this thing that I've kind of spotted, and just focus on the colour. And I've just kind of found this pastel which is just about the right kind of colour. So I'm kind of just going with it and having a play with the textures as well, because this is actually quite nice where it's kind of the paper's falling apart a little bit. So I'm just playing with the idea of this colour and what can I do with it. In fact, it's got this there's quite a strong shape, almost like a geometric shape of the way the cloud is there at the moment. So let's just pull that across as well. So I don't think you should ever be afraid of it. This is actually the same pastel, it's just where it's got the water on it just looks a bit darker. Yeah, I don't think you should ever be afraid of really going for it with something. If you're using a material and you spot something, you think, right, what can I do with that? How far can I push that? I just want this to be about this colour and trying to see what I can do the different types of marks I can make. I've got this blue pencil, and that can give me a slightly different energy. You know, these don't have to be any more than that. You know, the point of this is to just find possibilities, find things that you might not normally do, because on a small little sketchbook page like this, you can do a lot so quickly, and you can just throw stuff down and just like this, just focus on just having one colour and nothing else, and find out what you can do with it, what you can do to kind of play around with this. I think I might probably leave that, because I actually quite like this. I quite like the way this will probably change though as it dries. This is darker blue here, but I might be able to do something with that. I quite like this difference between this lighter blue and the darker blue there. It's quite good fun. So I'm just looking at that, just thinking about the colour. That's all that's there. But then while I was doing that, I was thinking, well, I could do the colour, but then there's the light in the clouds, the white of the clouds, and I've got some of this oil pastel. There's like a white oil pastel that I've got, which I quite like. So let's start off in the same sort of way. Get some of this really intense blue down. And that's what happens if I put some of this in. And I'm thinking about this in terms of the lighter parts of the sky, the clouds. Yeah, that's quite nice. I think this will probably resist quite strongly as well, because this is wax. This white one is a wax pencil, a wax pastel. So it's going to get quite a bit of resist on there with the water. Might do a bit of blotting. And all these things, I do them to sort of show you. I don't know what's going to happen, so I always think it's useful to remember that I'm doing this. I'm just trying things out, and I've no idea if it's going to work. I haven't tried this out beforehand to see if it's going to be successful or not. Quite obviously, but I always think, you know, if I can do this on camera and show you, then you can certainly have a play around with it in the privacy of your own studio and not worry about what's going to happen. I do quite like that. I have to say, I quite like this just intense mixture of these two things that are going on in this sketchbook. Like I say, it doesn't have to be anything. Just, you know, you need to allow yourself to play with the materials. Because one day you'll be doing something like this and you'll be mucking around with it, and you'll just say, hey, that's exactly what I need. Maybe not this exactly, but something that you do will spark your imagination because you were playing about. And that, you know, that's how you do it. That's how these things come about. That's how you get this kind of these kind of little leaps of inspiration, is that you allow yourself to be playful. So just looking through my set of pastels and things here, I was thinking that blue might be quite nice with this kind of pinky, kind of peachy pastel that I've got here. And I'm just looking at the buildings outside, and I might be able to do something with that as well. I know it's not necessarily the weather, but it's what's outside my studio window. You know, you start somewhere and you can, you know, allow it to take you somewhere else, you know. So I'm just having a play with this colour at the moment. I was quite enjoying getting myself really messy. And why not? You know what? It's like you never know what's going to happen if you start just experimenting for the hell of it. I'm just thinking about this kind of brick colour of the houses, and I might be able to find some kind of combination. In fact, maybe those shapes of the houses might work if I kind of have this little repeated shape of the kind of eaves of the houses. That's quite nice. And then there's these cloud colour again. Let's pull some of that in. This is lighter. You know, really getting some material down them. Like I said, it's just a bit, you know, it's just a bit of fun. Just gets yourself going. It doesn't have to end up anywhere. You do just need to sometimes allow yourself to go crazy. And these little sketchbooks are the best place to do that. You could be looking back on them. You know, you never know quite when you end up looking back on a sketchbook. And you're flipping through it. And you think, that was great, you know, I did all that work in such a short space of time. And there's some ideas there, some marks or a particular shape or texture that you discovered by accident almost. I quite like those little marks, are quite nice. Okay, so it's nice and bright and, you know, I'm just mucking about as you can see, but I think just this idea of being able to get started by having this very loose theme, you know, the idea of, okay, what's happening outside with the weather and what can I do with it? The idea of the wind and showing how things are moving. Just thinking about a colour and then think about a colour in combination with something else. So I'm keeping it very simple, just kind of building it up, bringing things in. So what else can you do? So I was thinking maybe I could pull in some bits of collage. I've got some bits of newspaper which I have used for blotting and printing, and that might be quite a nice place to start with some of this stuff. So I'm going to stick some of this down. It's got a bit of more texture to it. Yeah, let's just get some of these bits of paper stuck down fairly randomly, and then I'll kind of work over them. Because we did something a bit like this before with the kind of sketch a day project a few months ago. So it's always a nice thing, I think, to have your sketchbook pages kind of scruffed up to begin with. And I think putting a bit of collage that's got a bit of texture on is a really good way of doing that, because you know, you immediately got something to work with. So, and I'm doing that in conjunction with another theme as well. So let's have a think about what's going on out there. So they're going to do that as well as working with some of this pastel again. I think it's going to be quite nice, but maybe be a little more cautious with it, thinking about the colour, thinking about these kind of sky colours. What's different, two different types of pastel. Maybe that's what it was. I thought I was just using one. It was darker because of the water. No, it's a different one. Well, that's quite nice. Going with my left hand a bit. So I'm thinking about these sky shapes again. But having broken it up with this bit of collage underneath, it's quite different. There's a bit of movement going on there as well. So I can pull some of my white in as well. I think it's going to rock the paper up underneath. Let's see what happens. Okay, so it's a little bit. I might pull some of these darker pastels. I haven't used any paint yet. I'm just using these pastels. I mean, I like using the pastels for this kind of work because it's so direct. Let's look at some of these buildings down here as well. Not really buildings. I just want to bring out some of the brick colours. They're kind of blockier brick colours. I always think it's good just to, you know, look at the things that are going on and just pick out a particular feature, a particular aspect of something that's in front of you. So I've seen the buildings, you know, these kind of bricky buildings, red brick buildings. I'm just going to focus on that, and just some of a small characteristic of them as well, which is that they're a bit more blocky than the sky. So it's very simple, simplistic, some might say. There's some paint on this pastel that's annoying me. There we go. That's the problem, you kind of work into paint with the pastels and they'll get kind of gunked up, so then they don't work properly. Let's play with some of those marks, it's quite nice. Well, that would definitely do for that one. I quite like that mixture of the two different the cool of the blues and the sky, and these kind of reddy brick colours are quite nice. It's kind of got a sense of the sky kind of moving quite fast as well. Yeah, so obviously I'm just doing this quite quickly just to kind of show you the sorts of things you could do, just to kind of give you an idea of how to get started. But really, I want to kind of throw it over to you and see what you can come up with, because, in the space of a few minutes here, I've just made a start, just getting something down on the paper. And of course it's just the one day for me. I was just looking out the window here in my studio and just looking at what it was like today. But as you go on through the month, if you did this every day, do 4 or 5 little drawing sketches, and just seeing the different types of things you can do with that very simple notion of what's the weather doing today. Just keep that in the back of your mind. I think it's always good to have this kind of nice simple idea in the back of your mind, no matter what you're doing. If you can just latch on to that and just say, okay, it's a weather diary. Okay, it's a weather diary, and then you've got that really simple idea in your head, and you can always come back to that. So if you're thinking you might be getting a bit lost, or you're not quite sure what you're doing with these sketches, or why am I doing it, just remind yourself it's a weather diary. It's a really simple, very basic idea, but I think you could go a long way with it. The other thing, of course, is as we go through the month on the Facebook group, as you see people's work coming up, there's no reason why you can't say, hey, that was a really nice idea. I like what that person was doing, and then having a go at that yourself. I think the community group is a really powerful part of this membership group, because you can look at each other's work. You can have this kind of reciprocal energy that goes on throughout the course of doing these projects. You're not on your own. That's really the whole point of being in this group, is that you're not on your own. I'm here, sure, but that's just to kind of give you a push and say, why don't you try this, or why don't you try that? Really, the most powerful part of this group, I think, is the group itself. It's the dynamic that goes on between you. When I see people giving each other these kind of supportive little nudges and just saying, oh, that's really nice, how did you do that, and how did you do this, I really like that piece of work you're doing, I think it really builds the energy and the momentum of the group. So please do post your work up on the group. Please do look at what other people are doing and comment on it. And just, if you see something you're really, really interested in and it's working, you think, ask a question, ask somebody how it was done. And I'm sure they'll be very happy to tell you. And then have a go yourself, because it all builds, it all builds, all the experience builds. So let's keep it going. Let's keep the community spirit going, because it's been really good so far. So I hope you enjoy having a go at that this month. I'm really, obviously, as always, looking forward to seeing what comes up on the group and chatting to you all about it. So onwards and upwards into February, and I'll see you on the group.